Hello and welcome to the rather amateurish looking ChinnyVision video, because I wasn't going to do this as a video, but I thought I'll record this and show you what I've got, because I was down the local charity shop a few weeks ago and I saw this Boombox Ghetto Blaster stereo, call it what you will, on sale for £45, and well, yeah, that's ridiculous, but I kept on popping back in and having a look at it, and I didn't want to pay that kind of money for it. And then I was in a few days ago and it was down to £10, so £10 I thought I'd take a punt. It's very similar to a model I had in the 90s. This is an earlier model, probably about 1990, something like that, possibly very late 80s. It's a slightly less advanced version of the version I had. You usually see these with the X-Bass and surround feature on there, including buttons there, perhaps just a slight bit bigger. But it's a Sharp, and it's bright red. There is a plane flying outside, I'm sorry about that. And it does indeed seem to work. Shall we turn it on? If I can find, there we go, radio.
Police in Paris have clashed with yellow vest protesters 1 year on from the first of the movement's weekly demonstrations against the cost of living in France.
Quite a nice radio, it goes quite loud.
Stones at police who used tear gas and water cannon to disperse them. Senior Labour and trade union...
So we got that. It's got a line-in feature for, well, it says CD there, but line-in. It's got radio, got a twin cassette with this lovely mechanism, as you can see there. So it looks like a single cassette unit, but no, it's two. We can test out the cassette with this wonderful piece of music by Ricardo Autobahn and the Cuban Boys. Now it should go into tape 2. There. Press play. Seems to work. Probably will need a new belt. Is it going to work? Am I on the right deck? Am I on the right deck? We will soon find out. Right, I appear to be on the wrong side. It doesn't have an auto stop then. Right, are we turning? I think we are. Have to stop this for copyright reasons very quickly if it does start up. Is it not working?
Station announcer.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. I have to cut that off there before we get done. Ricardo Autobahn hardly ever sues. Do check out the Pound Shop Boys, by the way, with their superb music. You select which cassette tape you want up there. You got a dubbing mode, you've got continuous play 1 to 2 mode, no auto reverse. You've got a CD line in there. Your tuning is that's your, you've got shortwave, medium, long wave. Tuning is there. 4-band graphic equalizer, that looks particularly filthy. And got the beat cancel for AM, 2 modes. Headphones jack there, external microphone jack there as well, and I believe, as I remember, it can mix if you, or my one, I think you could put something into deck 1 and then put a microphone in and it would save it all out to deck 2, but I don't know if this one does that or not. It is particularly filthy. So I'm going to have to clean it up, and it takes I believe a ridiculous amount of C-cell. Oh yeah, C-cells there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 C-cells, as many as an Amstrad PPC 512 or 640, and we've got a serial number on the back. Sorry, this is all handheld, by the way. I'm just doing this as a quick video. I don't know if it's going on ChinnyVision 1 or ChinnyVision 2, or if I'm ever going to use it. But the aim is I'm going to tidy this all up so it's hopefully as good as new. I've got a tape belt somewhere for it. One particular problem we may come across with these units is they suffer from speaker rot. Not the paper, but the foam around the outside. These are known for, especially in the X-Bass units, the subwoofer can rot badly. So it's going to be interesting to see what condition all that is on the inside. You also have medium long wave and short wave on here, and here we go.
A few nerves coming in. This is, for me, the biggest matchup that these two have had since Australia in the beginning of this year. They've played twice since that match.
On the back, we have the message that every dual tape deck of the era had on the back. Recording and playing back of any material may require consent which Sharp is unable to give. Please refer particularly to the provisions of the Copyright Act 1956 and to Dramatic and Musical Performance Protection Act 1958, the Performance Protections Acts 1963 and 72, and any subsequent statutory enactments and orders. Interestingly, it was Amstrad who got a lot of the restrictions on this removed because they got taken to court by a section of the British music industry, and on appeal, I think Amstrad won, and that changed the law that gave us the 1988, I think it is, Copyright Act. So, yeah, this may in fact be pre-1988 as a unit, or circa 88 before the new copyright legislation came in. Here's the unit's mains input, and look, it's got a little screw there, and there it says 220 to 240. So I wonder if you flip that, it changes it into a 110 unit, or if it requires something a little bit more. Interesting, that's worth investigating. Okay, I'm almost ready to take this apart now. And I turn the radio back on, and suddenly I've got kind of what can only be described as farting noises coming from the right speaker. And I think, I don't know if I can show you. If you look down there, you will see it. Bit of foam flapping around. I think indeed the foam on these speakers has rotted, so I'm probably going to be into 2 new speakers for this, but we'll get it open and have a look. Here we are in the studio now. I'm going to talk over this footage because it's easier, because I've learnt over the years it's easier to do this stuff separately rather than talk while you're trying to unscrew things. So we've got about 6 screws holding the thing together. One of them's hidden in the battery compartment, and they're all quite tight. And these things usually are. Don't do them back up as tight as you find them. Although note also that the unit may have the eject mechanism like this one on the outer part of the case. So you will probably end up realigning your heads when you put the thing back together. Screws are incredibly long, as well, as you can see. Store them safely because you're not going to find any replacements easily. All the screws out. Move it onto the front and slowly pull away the front. And the mechanism opens there, and we have inside the unit, we can see it's all connected with wires on one side across to an amplifier that's beneath the volume control. There's a tape mechanism dated 1986 for the tape motor. All looking fairly good though. And there you go, there's April, was that 9th of April 1986 that motor was made. There's the twin tape mechanism, which should all come out in one go, probably connected to the main board by at least 2 sets of wires, probably more in fact. There's also that strange, not kind of gearing mechanism, but top left, where it operates what deck you're using. That's the back of the front, and there we can see those Sharp speakers. I've undone them. They're slightly weird, they're offset. The actual hole, the little screw holes are offset from the main speakers, which may mean replacements are difficult. And there we go, after 30 odd years, 34 years, and yeah, we can see without doing anything, that is completely disintegrated. Just as soon as you touch it, the foam's rotten. Now, you can replace the foam yourself, but it's really not worth it with a boombox like this. If you've got expensive hi-fi speakers, you may want to do a project like that, but this is going to be 2 new sets of speakers. That's going to be the easiest thing to do. They're connected with those spade connectors there, and there's also little piezo speakers you can see on the far edges of the unit. So that's max 15 watts, 8 watt units, and can't read, it's 4 ohm, I think you can see there. Should be easy enough to get a replacement set for that. Here's the tape mech. Undo some screws, it all comes out together. There's all those different wires going into it. You can unplug those, and then we're going to take the tape mechanism apart and put a new belt in. The motor is part of the tape mechanism there, and we're going to take the back off, or at least part of the back off, to get the new belt. And the belt actually feels fairly fine, but because you're in here, you know, you may as well replace it. It's not going to last long at this age. You saw the foam in those speakers. You don't know how well this thing's been stored. So there's a little retaining bracket there we need to get off, first of all. If we take that off, we might possibly be able to slide the new belt in. Let's see how we go. That's the retaining bracket. And look, it comes apart like that. So we don't need to take it apart any more than that. We can use some... Oh, we just need to check that mechanism there, which holds... It's like a bearing. But get that bearing back in. There we go. We can slide the new belt in and use some pinch nose, kind of computer pliers, to pull that round. I may not be able to do that on camera because it's fiddly, but you don't need to take apart the entire unit. You can usually avoid these things. I see so many people completely stripping down tape mechs on YouTube, and quite often, actually, you don't need to. There's usually some shortcuts you can take to avoid all that if you apply a little bit of thought. We're going to spray some isopropyl into the graphic equalizer controls and the volume controls to make sure they are moving nicely. I'll also squirt some lubricant in there as well. And there we go. That's what I use my mixing desk. So we give it a little drop of that. Right, so that's as far as I can take this today. I have a unit with no speakers in, so I'm off to order some speakers. So here we are about a week later. You're back on the rubbish camera audio for now on the phone there. And don't worry about my finger, it looks worse than it is. I looked online for lots of different speakers for the Sharp, and I eventually decided on these Alpine speakers which turned up today. They're 10 centimetres in diameter, and peak power is 180 watts peak power, whatever that means, some made up thing. Lots of things in the back here. Okay, look, they're 25 watt actually, peak power 180 watts. Impedance 4 ohms, which I think is the same as the originals. Frequency response 100 hertz to 20 kilohertz. And a sensitivity 88 dB with a voice coil that is aluminium. Woofer is ferrite, and a tweeter is neodymium. And they're not going to fit precisely. There's going to have to be a little bit of work going on, but they are 10-inch. I looked through lots of different options online, and I selected these. And let's open this up. The box looks a bit battered, but I haven't actually been in here yet. Fits Lancia cars. When was the last time we saw a Lancia? My mate had 2 of them. Only one of them ever worked. The other one spent a lot of time in the driveway not working. Lancia Deltas. Right, so hopefully, he says, trying to open this up. We've got some kind of mounting things there that are in plastic. Right, we should have 2 dusty speakers that are the right size. Now, on the unit, those are offset back, like there. So that's going to be interesting to try and make that work. And also, this actually has a tweeter built in on the top there. It's like 2 speakers in one, which is a bit confusing. And actually the Ghetto Blaster has little tiny tweeters inside. there, like a little piezo type speakers. So I might not need to have the piezo speakers connected, but the foam there feels a lot more healthy. And the reason I chose these ones as well is because of the discrete design. It's going to look fine behind the grille. A lot of them have colours these days and big logos on them. And I saw someone who made up one of these. That's bent, hasn't it? Bend that back. I saw someone who did one of these hi-fi with these ghetto blasters up, and he put white speakers behind, and it looked dreadful because it's a red and black unit, isn't it? And why do you want white in there for? And the other thing I've done is I've screwed up the FM dial when I was in there, but I can fix that. So I'm going to get this thing open, and I will try and talk you through what I'm doing. But I'm hoping these are going to fit. They feel a bit lighter than the originals, actually. But 30-year newer technology, 35-year newer technology. I know speakers don't move on that much, but hopefully engineered in Europe, made in China. So yeah, basically we're a European company, but we've outsourced this to China. And nothing else. They've got some screws as well, but I won't be using those. Cool. Right. Let's have a look and see how we get this in here and what fiddling around I need to do. So there's the old speaker there, and you can see the state of it. That's the one that came out on the left-hand side. There's the new speaker. Has an integrated tweeter in it. So there we go. We try and put it in. It doesn't quite fit, as you can see. So I'm going to need to Dremel the speaker holes on the speaker themselves to make those fit, and possibly use some washers as well. So there we go. I've Dremeled that and Dremeled the other one. And you can also use the little circular things that come with the speakers to get that offset you need. It appears Alpine actually provide you with a little offset bracket. The spades don't fit the new speakers either, so I'm having to solder on the connectors, which is a little bit annoying. It's also fiddly as well. I could cut the spades off completely, but I don't want to do it at this stage. So a little bit of soldering I didn't really want to do needed. I've decided to leave the little piezo speakers in for now and see how we get on. Right, time to test.
Hold tight for that. Right now, though, this is Van Jess. Touch the
that sounds okay. It actually works, and that's a bonus.
What year did the comedy
and back together it sounds even better.
come out?
Although I've got a problem because the unit will not close now. On the right hand side, it's hitting something.
You know, word up on BBC Radio 2. Producer Simon, stop talking to me and insulting me in my ear. It's very, very dry.
Shut up, you moron. So, I start examining what's going on here. And as you can see, there's a little mark on the speaker there, which is hitting a circuit board at the top that's preventing the switches from working on the top right hand side and preventing the unit from closing. You don't want to force it. We're going to have to look at how I can make this work. So I Dremeled off a little bit of the speaker there. Not much, but just a little bit. That didn't work. Still didn't give me quite enough clearance, so I had to go for more severe methods. Here's the circuit board that controls the stereo, monochrome controls and so on the top right-hand side of the unit. Now, thankfully, there's a massive amount of clearance on this little circuit board between the edge and the components, just at the point where it's hitting. So I Dremeled off very carefully, just ground off a little bit of the circuit board there. And lo and behold, it was much, much better. But there was still a problem because it still wasn't quite closing. It was now clear, the speaker was now clear of the board, but it still wasn't quite closing on the right-hand side. And I found a support on the right-hand side of the unit, inside the unit, beneath the tuning knob, that, again, the really thick bit of plastic that was just slightly catching the right-hand side of the speaker. And I just Dremeled off a small amount of that plastic. It's internal, so, you know, I'm always complaining about people Dremeling their old computers, so I'm a bit of a hypocrite here, but needs must in this case because I can't see a way of getting modern speakers in otherwise. And it's, after all, externally, you're not going to see any difference. These are just internal modifications. And this isn't a rare or expensive unit either. I just want to turn this back into something practical. So I ground off a little bit of plastic and lo and behold, it all went back together. And there we go, the Cuban boy is happily playing away on the tape decks now. However, still a slight problem because, as I mentioned before, the front of the tape unit is on the front of the case and the main mech is on the back. And when you take the unit apart, it seems to affect the tape alignment. So I had a little bit of fiddling around with both decks to adjust the tape alignment, and sadly I couldn't see a way of doing this with the tape in, so it was tweak a little bit and adjust, put the tape back in and rinse repeat until I got something right. The thing to remember as well is these aren't hi-fi units, so you're never going to get perfect playback. Tape Deck 2 always seems to play back slightly louder on the left speaker than it does on the right. Tape Deck 1 always plays back perfectly balanced, but always also sounds a little bit brighter, but lower audio level than Tape Deck 2, which is the main deck. And that's my memory of my newer unit of these, in that I always remember Tape Deck 1 sounding better than Tape Deck 2. They're not hi-fi units. They are 1980s ghetto blasters. I've tweaked and fiddled and adjusted, and I've got it as best I can. So what's the prologue to this? Was it worth it? Well, I saved an attractive unit, not in brand new condition, but in fairly good condition from going to landfill, because someone would have taken this home from the charity shop and found that the belt probably would have slipped after a while, and certainly those speakers weren't going to last very long at all. If you're retrofitting one of these units, you are going to have to make some compromises with the speakers, because you can take all the speaker measurements you want, but all these units, while they're going to claim they've got 10 inch speakers in them, all the mounts are going to be very slightly different, and certainly the depths are going to be slightly different again from the original units in here. All the speakers you buy are for car hi-fis, and there's lots of space behind in the door cards and so on to put all the bits of speakers you need. And in here, you can clearly see there's very limited space behind the speaker grills before things start hitting circuit boards. So I think, and having looked at other people's restorations of these units, you have to be prepared to get a Dremel out just to grind things, cut holes, and try and make your speakers fit. Left hand side was easy on this unit, right hand side was not. I've now got a unit that sounds fantastic on FM radio, actually, far better tuner than many modern units. It sounds better than it did when it got here, probably sounds better than it did new. Tape playback isn't great, but it's not a hi-fi unit, and it was a good unit for the time. And of course you do have that CD input as well on the phono, which you could plug Bluetooth or anything into, and the unit actually sounds quite good. But more importantly, I think I've saved something going to landfill, and I've got something that will look really good on my shelf. I think it's been a worthwhile project.